本来说好的10万块钱彩礼，但是呢，昨天我闺蜜跟我说让我再加10万，去试探一下我老公对我是不是真心的。没想到我跟我老公一提呢，然后他就说要跟我分手，这婚他不跟我结了。我真的是很无语，然后我就跟他说了，我说我只是想要试探一下你，但是我老公他就当真了，他说现在这个婚他不愿意跟我结了，他说真正的感情是不能去试探的，有些事情你一试探的话，他就是没有办法挽回了，那我现在该怎么办啊？
I believe this woman's behavior can be described as a typical trust test, which is a very dangerous signal in many relationships. First of all, both parties have already reached an agreement on the bride price, which means they have established a certain foundation in their feelings and marriage. However, because of her bestie's suggestion, this woman suddenly decides to increase the bride price to test her boyfriend's sincerity. This behavior actually shows that she does not truly trust her boyfriend, or that she has a severe lack of security in the relationship. Using money to test feelings not only appears opportunistic, but also makes the boyfriend feel objectified and even disrespected in the relationship. From the man's perspective, such a test is an insult to the relationship. Many men believe that genuine love should be built on mutual trust and respect, rather than proving it through artificially created challenges. The boyfriend's decision to break up is not because of the money, but because he realizes that the foundation of trust is already lacking in this relationship. If such a test is necessary before marriage, will there be more trust tests in the future marital life? For men, such a relationship is very insecure. Furthermore, this also reflects the interference of female friends. The bestie's suggestion to test her boyfriend seems to be for her friend's benefit, but in reality, it is destroying the trust foundation of this relationship. A truly mature woman should have the ability to independently judge her own relationship, rather than being easily influenced by others. The consequence of testing may not only be losing the relationship, but also making the boyfriend feel that she lacks her own opinions and is easily swayed by external influences. This woman's behavior can be said to be completely irrational and a manifestation of a lack of trust, which easily leads to conflicts and disputes. Finally, I have a small suggestion. This woman might as well test whether her bestie is a true bestie by borrowing 100,000 yuan from her. So, have you ever experienced such tests from your partner in front of the screen?
Today's events left me utterly speechless. I didn't even know what to say. My eyes were wide open, and the words were stuck in my throat, unable to come out. I was so furious that my blood pressure shot up. I just want to remind these girls, don't act too much, or you'll end up scaring the guys away. You're thinking of testing them, but in the end the guy just turns around and goes off to find the next girl. Won't you be left dumbfounded then? Last month, there was a girl born in 1995, 167 centimeters tall, with a bachelor's degree, an annual salary of around 100,000 yuan, and she looked quite nice. Her requirements for a guy were also reasonable. She wanted a guy who was at least 175 centimeters tall, had a bachelor's degree or higher, an annual salary of more than 150,000 yuan, and a house in the city. Even if the house had a mortgage, that was fine. He could be 3 to 5 years older than her. These demands seem pretty normal, right? So we matched her with a guy 178 centimeters tall, with a bachelor's degree, an annual salary of 180,000 yuan. All his conditions met the girl's requirements, but this guy had one fatal flaw. He had really low emotional intelligence, a typical straight man. However, the girl hadn't met him yet and thought his conditions were pretty good. So they arranged a time and place to meet. When they met, the guy couldn't carry a conversation and made a few small mistakes. The girl wasn't too pleased, but she thought she could forgive him. After getting home, the guy called me and asked, "Can you help me ask if this girl is willing to date me?" I said, "Can't you feel it yourself whether she wants to date you or not? Just send her a message, see if she replies, or suggest another meeting and see if she agrees to meet again. That way you'll know." So the guy did as I suggested, and the girl agreed to keep seeing him. After that, they continued to date for 3 months without any break. I thought they were going to make it, but suddenly one day, the guy told me that the girl had broken up with him. She didn't want to continue and said he should go find someone else. So I started looking for a new match for the guy, and soon another girl was willing to meet him. They began a new interaction. Then this morning, that previous girl suddenly came to me, furiously questioning me. How could you do this? I hadn't broken up with this guy yet. How could you introduce him to another girl? I said, the guy clearly told me that you were the one who initiated the breakup. The girl explained unhappily, we were talking just fine, I just wanted to test him, to see if he's the kind of guy who would only marry me, and if he can tolerate me. If he can't tolerate such a small thing, how are we supposed to live together after marriage? I thought, what's the point of this test? Everyone is here for blind dates, who can keep tolerating whom? If you two get along, then keep dating, if not, just move on and find someone else, isn't that better? The guy has already met the other girl twice, what are you still trying to test now? You were quite happy with him, and you could have continued dating, but you had to do a test and scared him off. Now how am I supposed to help you? The girl still wasn't giving up and wanted me to ask the guy again. So I did, but the guy firmly said, she clearly told me she didn't want to date anymore. How was I supposed to know she was testing me? So girls, if you have something to say, just say it outright. Isn't it better for everyone to lay things out on the table? Today, this matter made me so angry that my blood pressure almost exploded.
再回想一下我小时候谈恋爱干过最蠢的事，我觉得应该就是拿小号去测试男朋友。
Thinking back to the silly things I did when I was in love as a child, the most foolish one was probably using a fake account to test my boyfriend. Don't laugh, I know many of you might have done something similar, even though we all know the outcome is rarely what we hope for. Most of the time, boyfriends easily fall into this trap and start talking about things they shouldn't. So I've always felt that women often destroy a perfectly fine relationship because of their curiosity. Even if there was nothing wrong with the man, we insist on thinking there's something, and we go test him. In the end, the result usually makes us feel like the man really isn't good enough. This situation is like a woman secretly doing a paternity test after giving birth. You tell me, how would you feel doing something like that? On a larger scale, human nature itself cannot withstand tests. It's not that your boyfriend isn't good enough, but anyone could waver in the face of overwhelming temptation. Think about it. If a billionaire stood in front of you, offering you 100 million yuan to break up with your boyfriend, and then added another 100 million, wouldn't you be tempted? Most people would probably immediately take a taxi, find their boyfriend, and break up with him. And as they leave, they might even sigh. Although this decision was hard, the temptation was just too great. That's human nature. The key is whether the temptation is big enough. Even if your boyfriend passed the first test, you might still doubt that he noticed something and deliberately responded, so you'd do a second and then a third test. This reminds me of certain e-commerce platforms that actually offer services to help test a boyfriend's loyalty, with decent monthly sales. If your relationship can only survive through these tests and trials, I advise you to break up as soon as possible. This kind of mutual suspicion is like two people constantly pricking each other with needles. Eventually, he won't be able to bear it and will break up with you. By that time, you might coldly say, I knew it. Testing a lie with another lie only results in lies. A relationship is like buying a glass cup. If you want to know whether the cup is durable, the only way is to drop it. But don't forget, the purpose of buying the cup is to drink water because it looks nice and is useful, not to test if it can withstand a fall. Similarly, if your partner passes all your various tests and challenges, you should reflect on whether you yourself are the kind of worthy partner for him to devote himself to.
两个人在一起，有些事情绝对不能做。
When two people are in a relationship, there are certain things that should never be done under any circumstances. Today, I want to share with you a true case we encountered at our matchmaking company, hoping it will provoke some thought. There was a girl who had been dating her boyfriend for 2.5 years. Although her boyfriend's family background was average, he was very filial and full of ambition. His family was also very kind, and the relationship between this couple had always been very good, to the point where they had even planned to get married at the end of this year. However, things took a turn 2 weeks ago. That day, the girl suddenly had the impulse to test her boyfriend's loyalty. So, she registered a new social media account, added her boyfriend as a stranger, and started chatting with him proactively. During the conversation, the girl deliberately made some flirtatious remarks to try and lure her boyfriend. However, at the beginning, her boyfriend behaved very appropriately, standing his ground and telling this stranger that he already had a girlfriend and was about to get married. Seeing this, the girl became dissatisfied. Why wasn't her boyfriend taking the bait? So, she increased the level of temptation. Unexpectedly, under further provocation,
her boyfriend eventually gave in. The girl felt utterly devastated. She confronted her boyfriend with the chat logs, emotionally threw her phone, and firmly demanded a breakup. Her boyfriend cried bitterly at the time, kneeling and begging for forgiveness. Friends around them criticized the girl, thinking that she shouldn't have tested her boyfriend. Now, their relationship is in a deadlock. They can't bear to break up, but continuing together means they can no longer rebuild trust. After seeing the feedback from this girl, I can understand her cautious attitude toward marriage, but I must say that this kind of test stems from her deep-seated insecurity and fear. She didn't really want to test her boyfriend's loyalty, but rather sought to verify if she was worthy of being loved. This behavior is more a challenge to human nature than a test of the relationship. She set a trap for her boyfriend, but in the end she found herself deeply trapped. So the question arises, should we blame the boyfriend for not being cautious enough, or should we blame the girl for her ulterior motives? My sincere suggestion to this young lady is that if you cannot fully trust the man in front of you, then don't continue the relationship. Such a relationship is a burden to both parties. If you decide to continue, then you must wholeheartedly trust the other person. Doubt and suspicion are extremely dangerous emotions that will spread like the butterfly effect. It may start with suspecting that he is flirting with someone else, and gradually, even if he comes home a little late, it will set your mind racing. You will start to monitor his every move like a detective, even tracking his phone. In the end, you may be afraid of him talking to any other woman, losing balance in your life. On the other hand, being in this state of doubt for a long time will also drain your precious energy. You will lose yourself, completely relying on his attitude, and your sense of self-worth will fluctuate with his reactions. This continuous sensitivity and desire for control will eventually suffocate him. To escape this pain, he might ultimately choose to break up. So who is really at fault then? Therefore, I want to remind all the girls out there that if you lack a sense of security and confidence deep inside, the one who ends up hurting you the most is often not others but yourself. You claim to love him, yet you doubt him without reason. This behavior is highly destructive. Instead of spending time proving whether he loves you, it's better to focus that energy on improving yourself, making yourself more outstanding and attractive. When you exude such confidence and charm, not only will you be happier, but your man will also fall more deeply in love with you.
你会发现你的女朋友总是会跟你无理取闹。
Sometimes you may find that your girlfriend always starts conflicts for no reason, and she might even argue with you about something highly dramatic, making you feel mentally burdened. Every time, the source of the conflict seems to stem from her. In fact, this is a characteristic of women. Each of her attacks is actually just a form of testing. She may seem like she's talking about breaking up, but in reality, she doesn't truly want to break up. She just craves the feeling of strong love and attention from you. In her eyes, over time, your love for her seems to have become less intense than before. She remembers how wholeheartedly you pursued her, and once you show even the slightest indifference or a less enthusiastic attitude, she begins to feel uneasy and doubtful. This insecurity drives her to test whether your feelings for her remain the same. Different women have different ways of conducting these tests. For some, these tests may be excessive, turning into extreme behavior, and even leading to an actual breakup. Sometimes, women may even get caught up in a struggle with themselves. It's not that you've done anything wrong that makes her bring up the topic of breaking up, but rather her own emotional confusion and insecurity. She might bring up the idea of breaking up for no reason, just to see how you will react. When you face such a situation, the key is to stay calm and patient. If you can endure her emotional fluctuations and tests, without getting exhausted by her troubles, and continue to accompany her without leaving, then you have truly understood what women need from love.
I personally believe that girls should never try to test a man's loyalty through various trials. The results of testing a man are nothing more than two possibilities. Either he successfully passes the test, or he fails. However, even if he passes the test, don't easily assume that you found the most loyal and devoted man in the world, because it's very likely that the test you designed was simply too easy. For him, it wasn't a real test, rather than him possessing some unbreakable loyalty. Conversely, if he fails the test, don't hastily conclude that he's untrustworthy either, because almost no man can pass a truly challenging test. Therefore, I believe that testing a man is inadvisable. This approach is undoubtedly a double-edged sword, and it will ultimately lead to mutual harm. For example, some girls ask their besties to test their boyfriends, or even deliberately arrange for their besties to confess to their boyfriends. Don't you think this kind of behavior is incredibly pointless? Before a clear confession happens, who knows, some besties might really want to steal your boyfriend. But once you let your bestie confess to test your boyfriend, things may take an unpredictable turn. If your boyfriend really makes a mistake during the test, can you handle the outcome? Even if he ultimately rejects your bestie's confession, when he finds out that all of this was a trap you set, will he still be happy? He'll feel that you no longer trust him, and once trust is broken, a breakup is almost inevitable. What's worse, some girls find other attractive women to add their boyfriends on social media and have these women relentlessly pursue their boyfriends until they receive a clear rejection. I once heard of an extreme case where a girl tested her boyfriend by continuously having beautiful women harass him for 2 months. I have to say, this guy was really impressive. He consistently refused and gave no opportunities. However, one day, the couple had a huge argument. At that moment, the woman who had been testing the boyfriend clearly knew that the boyfriend felt very sad and lonely, and it was right then that gentle care from a third party came in. As a result, the guy said some ambiguous things in a moment of emotional turbulence. The next day, the screenshots of the conversation were sent to the girl, and they had no choice but to break up in a rather ugly fashion. So, we can't entirely blame the man for this. I've always believed that if you love someone, then you should trust him. If you trust him, don't resort to these kinds of underhanded methods to test his loyalty. And if you don't trust him at all, then perhaps the best choice is to not continue the relationship. Do you think girls should test men? Feel free to leave your comments. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is very important to us, and we will continue to provide you with better content. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.